This is Ben Llewellyn. Today I'm talking to you about plurals in Welsh. That's more than one thing. How do they form? Like in English, you just put an S after most things. But every language works differently, and Welsh is no different to being different. And there are a lot of different plural forms in Welsh, which make it really unique. It's one of the most difficult things for learners to get their heads around, because it's not formed in the same way that English is or French. There are some basic rules that if you know these, it'll really help you get a leap forward in understanding Welsh. You'll be able to look at a page and be like, yeah, those are all nouns, and I know what they are in the sentence, which will enable you to absorb vocabulary and information faster. And this is not really covered in a lot of courses, so I want to give you this tip so you get a faster springboard into Welsh. So what I'll go through with you today is how nouns work after numbers, the four main ways in which plurals are formed in Welsh, and the main endings for those types of plurals that attach things to the end or drop bits off, so that you can be able to identify which are the main four ways of forming plurals you're talking about in Welsh. Let's go. The first thing is that every language works with numbers differently. Welsh does as well. It has its own way, and it's like Hebrew and Arabic in that after a number, you don't have a plural form. So, die D, two houses. T is house, and it becomes D. Once you know that, you're going to get away from stumbling blocks later on. So you got that out of the way. After a number, you don't have a plural, except when it's a bigger number, and there's no set rule when it's bigger or not. So like after let's say, I don't know, 5,000 mountains, pumilo fynyddoedd, you add the O to say 5,000 of, because it's a bigger number and it's less specific in the Welsh mindset because it's more gargantuan. So you add that O. Otherwise it would be pumilo fynyddoedd, which sounds like you're just heaping something together. Now canto geirw, 900 deer. So the first of those four ways that I mentioned earlier to create a plural noun in Welsh is that you change the middle of the word, the vowel. Fawn is a stick, and if it sticks, feen, with a Y. That's a bit different, right? A lot of those ones that change form are single syllable, like ffordd, a road or a way, becomes ffyrdd. And this O to Y change is quite common, like porth is a gateway or a portal, and it becomes pyrth. Fork becomes firk, and that O to sound is really common, and the sounds are very consistent. Once you know how they work, you can often guess what a plural is, and you'll become more familiar with that with time. Gwasg, printing press, becomes gwaisg. One of my favorite is one of the ones that changes not only the middle of the word, but comes after, changes the ending, and this is probably the most common. So you get careir, which is a heron or a crane, and it becomes crehirod in the plural form. That odd ending I'll show you more of later on. It's to do with a special kind of grouping which is unique to Welsh. Words like borth for table become beirddau. Talent is down, spelled like dawn, and it becomes doniau. And a lot of these that change the middle of the word that add on an ending are having that AU ending. But not every case, and you're going to have to learn them case by case. Not all of those which change the middle of the word are single syllable. So you get words like habech, a tent, becomes pebech. And you'll notice that a lot of these end in double L, which change the middle of the word. There are patterns. There are a lot of different patterns, which makes Welsh really nuanced and able to flex subtle meanings, as I'll show you later on with the endings. The second way that we form plurals in Welsh is that we detach an ending and add another ending. This isn't as common, but it's very common in terms of the professions. So, athronydd is a philosopher, and if it's plural, you get athronwyr. Pedestrian, cerddwr, becomes cerddwyr. A lot of things that label people change this way. cyfarchiad, an address to someone. Plurals become cyfarchion. You'll need that one now and then. A really common one is that you add a plural ending on a word that's singular and shorter. Now, I would mention first that a lot of plurals in Welsh are actually shorter than the singular, but not always, such as gov, which is a smith, like a blacksmith. And in the plural form, it adds on the ending. It doesn't change in any other way, like most other nouns. So it's govaint. You'll see that in govaint air, goldsmiths. So let's go to the next way that plurals change. They add a singular ending. And this is completely different to like English and French, where you add the plural. In many, many Welsh words, you add the singular and you assume that it's plural before you say otherwise. So adar is birds, and then the singular, aderyn. Moch is pigs, and then you make it singular by making it longer, mochen. This is one of the things that I truly and genuinely love about Welsh. It's completely unique that way. Coed is trees, coeden is a tree, but also you get a different plural which doesn't exist in English, coedydd, which is groups of trees of different kinds within a larger group of trees. So there are elm trees and oak trees within that. Those are coedydd within the coed. So we've seen the 4 ways to create plurals. Now, those endings you need to learn. So I'll go through those now because they have a lot of different nuance and flavor that in English you just assume that it's going to be an S. And there's no meaning to that S. But in Welsh, there is a nuance. There's a flavor to it that suggests meaning. And I'll show you that now. So there are a few plural endings that are rarer. So I'll begin with those. Aint, ed, en, so merched, daughters. I told you about the govaint, the blacksmiths. Brawd for brother becomes brodir, brothers. So in English you have ox and oxen, and in Welsh you have and uchen, which is a plural, which is really unusual in Welsh. And I think this one probably comes from Saxon, actually, into Welsh. A bit more common than those, though still quite rare, is you get an edd ending. And it suggests almost like a growth off of something in a way, but it's not confined to that. So ewinedd is nails, like fingernails. Ewinedd. What are these? One of them is a bis, and these are bisedd, plurals. Danedd, teeth. But wives are gwragedd. Little annoying gnats are meeknedd, where one is a meekin. Nadredd, snakes. So there is kind of a tangible growth element to that ending, but it's not confined to that by any case. It just has that feeling to it. Aid, A-I-D. It's a very flighty feeling ending. Quite a few flying things, like gwynoliaid, swallows. But you also get types of people now and then with this as well. Cernuaid, Cornish people. So that's interesting. Even the people elements of the Id kind of carry on this kind of flighty element in many ways. Ffoaduriaid, refugees. Pechaduriaid, sinners. There's a feeling to these different plurals, each and every one. I like because it immediately suggests that something's small in a bunch of little bits. Buledi, tafleni, for flyers that you distribute. But these don't always denote small things, this I end. Eglwisi, churches. Pluivi, parishes. Often this ending does come from words which originate from Latin, in the first wave of Latin that came, not the later Norman French. There was a period many of these plurals formed out of the fact that Welsh was changing into a Latin-based language, and the I plural ending is definitely a remnant of this. A carpenter, sire. Carpenters, sairi. The ending od, od, is very specific. It can be used as an insult because it's used clearly for animals, and it's almost used in a derogatory sense. Not being anti-women here in any sense, but it is used for female things, and women is menuod. That's the more formal form for a female. Genethod, lasses. Most animals are this ending, though you get exceptions. So for example, Kuningen becomes Kuningod. Llaw is lion. It becomes Llawod. Tyllion is one of the words for owl. It means the thing which emerges from the hole. Tyllianod. But there's one element of odd which I really find extraordinarily beautiful about Welsh. So historically, we fought the Irish and the French, who very foolishly invaded our country, and we created new endings for them. So historically, Irish were Gwyddyl. That's quite ancient now, frankly, but we today would say Gwyddelod. Please do not say Gwyddelwyr. It's very politically correct, which on this channel I'm going to avoid being politically correct. Gwyddelod and Francod for French people, because these were our enemies, and we gave them plural forms and how we addressed them to denote that they were, at the time, considered inferior barbarians. Odd. I like that we can manipulate the plural forms to insinuate such a derogatory feeling for someone. Oedd. Now this is... this plural ending is marvelous. It suggests an expansiveness, an epic grandeur in a way, majesty, immense distances. Moroedd, seas. Eberoedd, estuaries. Cenhedloedd, nations. Oh, may I go on? Mynyddoedd, mountains. Fryddoedd, the upland pastures. And yet you get structures of importance. Llysoedd, the royal courts or the courts. It's used in words as well for throngs and multitudes. Lluoedd, forces. Tirfaoedd, the throngs, the crowds of people. Pobloedd, peoples, plurals of peoples. Extensiveness. This oedd ending does enrich the language with the suggestion that the plurals are so big that you can barely see it. The plural of multitudes. Gyrfaoedd, careers. The plural for 100 and the plural for 1,000 both attach this oedd to them. Canoedd, 1,000, mil, thousands, miloedd. Multitude beyond being able to see it. That's what oedd suggests. The ending on or ion with an I before it suggests vocation, usage, facility, objectification of a thing or a person, frankly. It can be used insultingly in a way, but it's also in terms of praise being used for professions, like meddygon for doctors, gwybodesion, intellectuals, cerddorion, musicians. These are all professions, but it's not limited to this at all. There are living things that are this on, which suggest an individual crawling thing with a purpose to fulfill. Cynhron, maggots, separate things that are distant from us, like cloion, locks, cyfrifiaduron, computers, olwynion, wheels, things that are objectified, even like types of insects. And I think originally this is where the plural for the English people came from, Saison. But it could have been from what they called themselves, Saxon. There's no way to know. Many of them are positive. Cahiron, muscles. So it's not restricted to that profession, but it is evocative of something with a purpose to fulfill. I think the plural which most describes the purpose of the on or ion ending in things is gweision, servants. It is a person with a purpose that is almost removed of their personality, fitted into a role to serve a specific task. And many ONs fit into this, but not all, by any means. Planhigion, plants. Nuion, gases. Deledion, deled is dead. Maybe I'll make a video on this sometime, that deledion, debts, are very useful for making money, if you know how to leverage them in order to buy bigger things which make you money. The ending eth, sometimes attached to ath, is very indicative of things which are a feature or a built-in element of the landscape, or a building placed upon it in some way in a specific spot for utility or utilizing it. So for example, dolith, meadows, nentith, twisting little brooks, pyrveith, refineries, Heolith, southern roads, or eastern roads, if you're in Wrexham as well. Lloftith, lofts. But then you get plurals without any singular, like amenith, brains. You've noticed more than once in here the AU ending. Faglai, torches. Cliniai, pictures. This ending does not really suggest any nuance or feeling. It's quite soulless. It's more attuned to the English S, which we also get in Welsh, by the way, but I'm not going to get into, because if you see an S word in Welsh, you can assume it comes from English mostly, except a few words ending in OS. Which mean usually that it's something small and round or pebbly. Kerios, cherries or cherry trees. And another ending that you need to know is EN and YN. These correspond to each other. They are a diminutive, an ending that makes it small, and both of those are singular. And to make it plural, you take it off, okay? A fish is piscodin. And to make it plural, you take that off, piscod. But you can also say pisk, which suggests, frankly, that it's a larger volume of fish. It is an older word, but you can still use it and get away with it. I hope that you will. As I said, you can remove endings, and there are lots of endings that change the nuance. I mentioned the OS ending for smaller, rounder things. You see, you get marwa, embers, which tends to suggest smoldering coal. But if you say moroidos with that OS ending, that suggests that it's more like cinders, tingling of the flames, rather than the more open smolder of embers. It's a different meaning. I should note, you also get tewin, which is an ember in parts of Wales, and that changes tewinion. Most words ending in en are feminine, and a lot of them are to do with plants. With plants, more often than not, the singular is longer. So keriosen is a cherry tree. Kerios is both cherry trees and cherries. Derwen is an oak. It becomes deru. So if you see now that there are 4 very regular ways to create plurals in Welsh, it's not as complicated as you would fear. So again, those are, you change the vowel in a word, sometimes adding the ending. You add an ending, or remove one that exists already and add another one, so you're changing the ending. Or you remove the singular ending to just have the plural, or you add a plural ending. Those are only really 4 different ways. And then you just have to master what the different endings are, mainly. And the changes of the vowels are very, very consistent. So I hope that enriched your Welsh learning. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the different kinds of plurals. How do you think this compares to other languages? And what influences from other languages do you see in the plurals? Hey, diolch yn fawr mwy, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.